the first elements in other news then of the investigation into the death of French teenager Nahel have been revealed in the French papers this Thursday morning. Our press reviewer Diptyque Laurent is here with a closer look.
Well, Aaron, more than a week after Nahel was killed in the Parisian suburb of Nanterre by a police officer, the sort of early details of this investigation are being revealed by the papers this Thursday. This is in Le Monde, which has accessed the general prosecutor's indictment, a detailed timeline of the facts in the police officer's statement. For instance, he explains that he was working his 9th straight day. He denies threatening to put a bullet in the head of the young man. It was heard in the video, but we don't know who actually said it. He also says he was fearful of sort of being trapped by the vehicle that Nahel was traveling in, and he explains having fired the gun without aiming to target his chest. Now, Le Parisien aujourd'hui en Francie, another paper, has had access to the police officer's hearing by the institution that polices the police. Le Parisien saying something's sort of wrong in the statement by the police officer who says he sort of put himself in front of the vehicle to stop it from moving, and that the driver had accelerated the vehicle to escape. Facts that are totally contradicted by the video that would later emerge. So Le Parisien really expressing its sort of surprise that this information, erroneous information, could have even made it into the intervention report.
All right, well, in the wake of the unrest that followed his killing, then Emmanuel Macron has actually suggested restricting social media use. As you can imagine, those comments have clearly not gone down very well in the papers.
Yeah, in fact, it's drawn unanimous outcry and unanimous criticism from the press across the political spectrum. This is from the right-wing paper L'Opinion, which is headlining on it today. Emmanuel Macron had suggested in a meeting with the mayors of France that the government in the future could cut off social media, cut off internet access to during moments of unrest to quell dissent. A suggestion, as I said, that's drawn scorn from both the French papers but also the international papers. What on earth was Emmanuel Macron thinking? That's what L'Opinion says in this article today. It's cartoonist Erkak showing Emmanuel Macron trying to catch birds, of course, that represent the Twitter birds. The website Gizmodo also focusing on this in this article here, expressing its alarm at the, quote, near state of anarchy that France appears to be in right now, and also alarmed that Macron's potential solution to the chaos sounds, quote, straight out of a third world dictator's playbook, throttling access to large parts of the internet until the whole thing blows over.
All right, we'll stay on the theme then of circles of power and social media then, because in the United States, President Joe Biden and his staff's access to social media giants has been drastically limited in a new ruling from the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that actually it's a ruling from the federal court and the White House, but it could end up in the Supreme Court because the White House says it will appeal that ruling. A federal judge issued an injunction that barred many executive branch agencies and officials from communicating with social media services about protected speech. Now, this ruling supports claims from the prosecutors that the White House went too far when it tried to persuade platforms to take down posts that it feared would, for instance, deter citizens from getting vaccinated or pose a threat to the integrity of U.S. elections. Now, the Biden administration says it should be allowed to intervene to ensure responsible policy. The Washington Post, in its editorial, says, look, the judge did do a, quote, overzealous, half-baked job, but that both parties do have a point, and this will be really interesting to see just how far it will go if it does reach the Supreme Court.
Indeed. All right. Well, we'll change to turn to some other news then. Kylian Mbappé is making sports front pages today, this after an ultimatum issued by his club, Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah, this is actually making headlines in Marca, which is a Spanish sports paper today, reporting on Paris Saint-Germain's owner, Nasser Al-Khelaifi's ultimatum to Mbappé that if he doesn't give his response on whether he extends his contract or not in the coming weeks, well, then the door will be permanently closed to him. That's what the paper says on its front page today. It doesn't seem like it's something that Mbappé is really worried about or fazed about, at least. He was seen partying it up recently, this week actually, at a party that seems like it had an insane guest list, a white party hosted by billionaire Michael Rubin for the 4th of July holiday in the U.S. You can see Mbappe there brushing shoulders with people like Tom Brady, Jay-Z, Leonardo DiCaprio. It's also led some very I would say overzealous or keen-eyed Real Madrid fans to think that it's a subliminal message that he will move to Real Madrid. Of course, the Real Madrid jersey is white, so many people thinking, is this a sign or not? I'm not quite sure, since the theme was white. So
I will say that he definitely doesn't look very torn up in those photos. It's like he's having a grand old time. All right, you're going to end Dipti with a story that we talked about a few weeks ago. That's a tourist who scrawled his name and his girlfriend's name as well on the walls of the Colosseum in Rome.
Yeah, that tourist from England, a 27-year-old fitness trainer, has now written a letter of apology to the mayor of Rome after keying his name with car keys into the 2,000-year-old landmark while being filmed doing so. This letter was published in this Italian paper today, Il Messaggero, in which Ivan Dimitrov who was found by the police 5 days after he was seen doing this. In this letter, he apologized for the, quote, seriousness of his deed. He also notes that at the time, he didn't realize just how ancient the Colosseum actually was. Might I suggest maybe some history lessons as a suitable punishment for this guy, maybe?
Yeah, I feel like that's probably the least of it. If he didn't realize how ancient it was, that does beg the question.
I wonder how old he thought it was.
Yeah, and why he was visiting it if it wasn't that old. But we'll let our viewers reflect on that. Thank you very much, Dipti Laurent, with the Press Review.